State's character. Here's Kevin Mackey with this week's Montana Moment, brought to you by Montana Chevy Dealers.
The numbers are staggering. More than 72,000 American military service members who served in World War II are still unaccounted for. Many will never be found, but thanks to DNA technology, the families of some of those heroes are finally coming home. In our Montana Moment, the story of two brothers from Hamilton. Kevin Mackey reports.
After Pearl Harbor was bombed, Japan attacked the Philippines. Wayne Evans and his brother Robert on the right, Wayne is on the left, were U.S. Army soldiers serving there. Both were captured and declared missing in action.
I'm thinking of my grandmother in particular, but I'm sure it was the same for my grandpa. To have both of their boys missing, I just can't imagine.
A newspaper article from 1944 says the boy's father, Arthur, had enlisted in the Navy in World War II as a ship fitter with the Seabees, writing back to the paper from somewhere in the South Pacific that he hoped to meet his boys over here. He never did. Robert would survive his capture and internment. His brother Wayne would not. Robert would always mourn for his big brother.
My dad worshipped his brother.
Wayne's fort was one of the last bastions to surrender. Both Wayne and Robert were taken to the infamous Cabanatuan POW camp. Conditions were horrific.
He arrived at camp on June 14th, 1942, and ultimately he died in the camp hospital the next month on July 19th, 1942, from dysentery.
Disease ran rampant.
They would be fed rice that was full of weevils and different things.
The Japanese supervised work details, including grave digging.
We were told that everyone that passed during a single 24-hour period were all put in the single common grave.
Private Evans was buried with 34 others in common grave number 312.
Dad told me that he was tortured to death, but he never really explained much of it.
After the war, attempts to identify the remains of these soldiers proved difficult, if not impossible.
The soils were sandy, the remains were all commingled, there was a high water table.
Wayne's body was interred as an unknown until his DNA was matched with family members.
To have identified even a part of him, to me, is miraculous.
Stories of the Evans brothers can be found in scrapbooks at Hamilton American Legion Post 47. For their parents, Arthur and Elva Evans, news of their sons would be both joyous and devastating.
The father telephoned that he had received 2 telegrams from the War Department Tuesday. The first telegram advised that Robert had been killed in action. This was followed quickly by a second wire stating the first was a mistake and that Robert Evans had been liberated and is well and is on his way home. Hamilton, May 24th. Private Wayne Evans, 24 of Hamilton, dies in a Japanese prison camp. His mother was informed today by the War Department.
Throughout the war, stories like these covered the front pages of every local newspaper. Readers would have reviewed every line, studied every picture of somebody's son. Old classmates would have perused Wayne's high school commencement announcement, class of 1939.
He played football.
Wayne and Robert were Broncs.
They both went to Hamilton High School.
Robert graduated in Hamilton High School's class of 1940. Many of his classmates would join him in World War II. Bob Evans moved on to a productive life, much of it in California, although he spent his retirement years here in Hamilton. He died in 1996. But for Bob and his parents, there was always something missing.
Yeah, they were always missing him and yearning for him to be home.
Sometime in the fall, Wayne will finally come back to Hamilton. He has a place waiting for him. Kevin Mackey, NBC, Montana.